we were talking before about how you have considered yourself like the canceled whisperer, like somebody who helps people out who've run into this kind of backlash online.
Yeah.
I want to read you a couple quotes of your Medium article authorship.
Cool.
And you just tell me your feedback on what this means to you. I mean, you wrote it, but
Yeah.
what it means to you. It feels like we've become poison to the unnecessary to the point where we create the havoc that we need to see.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think that, so there used to be a time where, like, if you read an article that said guy saves babies from burning building, it would just be, oh my God, I'm glad that this guy saved these babies. That's beautiful, right? And then that gets to run for a month, right? But now it's a thing of, if you read guy saves babies from burning building, your first reaction is, well, what was he like in 8th grade, right? What was this guy? I feel like he did something something about him I don't trust. I don't like that guy. And then one person just pops up like, yeah, I knew him in college and he was an asshole to me, or whatever. And then it becomes a thing of, yeah, I heard he's an asshole. And how do you pile on to kind of diminish the voice or the light or the whatever of this story and of this person? Like, there was the one few years ago where there was a kid who was getting bullied, and they had taken a video of him, like, saying he wanted to kill himself. I think he had dwarfism or something like that. And people reached out to him, celebrities and Marvel people. We want him to come to the red carpet and da-da-da-da-da. And then someone else just released an image of, like, no, here's that kid partying. It's an actual adult. And then like, think someone eventually managed to kind of shut that down, but, like, not really. Like, if something, it's almost like a gas leak when we all lose our minds in this collective moment of, well, that's the bad guy. We need the villain. That's our villain for today. Instead of one realizing, like, at any moment we could all be the villain of Twitter or Instagram or our community, or, you know, the apartment complex, whatever. Like,
everyone is a villain to somebody in their life.
Yeah,
probably.
Or you're not living right. You know. So yeah, I think a lot of it is we create our own kind of chaos because we try to create our own villain, but we try to do this every single day. And I think a lot of that also comes from the fact that we didn't confront whatever quote unquote villain or bad guy we have in our past. So when we don't, when we're not able to say fuck you to, you know, the uncle that touched me or whatever, you put it off on, like, some dude who you do improv with because he, like, said he likes butts or whatever. So it becomes like, well, where's my power now? It's a lot of it. You've heard, like, the whole thing of, like, oh, people who got bullied end up becoming bullies.
Yeah,
it's a lot like that.
Yeah, 100%. That's really interesting. So a few shows ago, I had my buddy Patrick on, who's, like, a dating expert, and he was talking about kink, and he was saying, and we talked about how a lot of this stuff comes from these early childhood traumas, usually traumas or strange experiences, and then the adult is left with this thing that they're trying to feel okay about and trying to incorporate it into, like, a healthy sexual relationship, despite the fact that it was born out of trauma. Do you think this is a similar phenomenon where it's like somebody experienced a trauma and then they're going around trying to, what they feel like is maybe save other people from a similar trauma, but really they're becoming this crusader and, like, trying to, you know, burn down houses and destroy lives in the hope that they can, like, reverse this thing that happened to them, kind of thing?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of it is, I think it's two-part. I think a lot of it does come from past trauma. Or past elements of, like, well, my parents raised me this way and I want to break out from that. But then you end up falling in even harder with the, not essentially the idea of what your parents or, you know, whoever raised you, guardians, but you fall in more with the kind of conceptualization of what they were about. So if it was like, well, I'm very Christian-y. I love Jesus. I love God. And then you break out of the church, and then you become, I love this community, and I'll do anything for this community, and this community is my new God, right? It becomes that. I think that is kind of the second part of that, because everyone wants to look like the good guy. They want to be like, I'm the hero of this story or whatever. But it's like, that's when you try so hard to become the hero of every tale, you end up creating your own villain. You end up in being the villain as well.
Okay, so I want to separate those two things out, because those are, I think, two different phenomena. So one of them is this trying to become the hero because you genuinely had some trauma that you're trying to heal the world of, and then maybe you'll go out and cause a bunch of harm because you're a little overzealous in trying to do this.
Yeah.
And then the other phenomenon is the wanting to project some kind of savior thing to the rest of the community. Like, how much overlap is everything just both of those? Is it that I genuinely want to do good, but then I become corrupted by my narcissistic need for feedback of people telling me that I'm doing good? Or is it there are good actors who go wrong and who are trying to save people, and then there are just bad actors who are there for attention? And like, how much is one and how much is the other?
I would almost feel like it's a definite like half and half. I think that. And we've definitely seen it before, of people who do some shady shit, and then they become this. It becomes like a super response of, how do I cover this up? Oh, if I do the most good thing of all time forever and ever, and also call attention to everyone else's shady shit, then no one's gonna look at me, because I've been the good guy the whole time. I've been Superman. Like, if
This is the virtue signaling smoke bomb that the ninja throws down and smashes on the floor, and they disappear in their glory.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you know, we know people like that.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, so it seems like, you know, you could argue that people have been throwing each other under the bus for their own political motives through time immemorial. Like, that's what Machiavelli wrote about. The Scarlet Letter is about everyone, you know, being really mean to this lady because of something that she did in somebody else's private life and make her wear the letter A and all that stuff. How much of this stuff that we're talking about is just human nature, and how much of it has been like magnified or warped by, you know, the filter bubbles and the algorithms of social media?
I think that everything kind of modernizes over time. Everything kind of solidifies itself in the realm of today. So we aren't doing anything new. This isn't like a reinvention of the wheel. You know, it's funny, because every time the subject of like cancel culture or call out culture or whatever you want to, toxicity, this, that, the third, whatever. Every time it gets kind of mentioned, someone's like, "Well, what about the women who were involved in the Salem witch trials and the witch hunt?" This, you know, that kind of thing, right? And I think a lot of people, when you say that, you give a very broad generalization of what happened during the Salem witch trials. Like, their idea of it, again, because a lot of these people, when you join that type of mob mentality, and I've been a part of it, I've definitely like been like, "Yeah, get him," right? Because it's easier. It's easier. And that's literally what the Salem witch trials were. They weren't what we, you know, like what's my sisters, my ancestors are the women who burned at the stake for blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it was men and women, or I'll say women and men because it was majority women. And they were like outcasts or weird, or like some dude wanted to divorce his wife, or this guy was too quiet or whatever. Like, it was more of a thing of, well, we don't like these people who are different than us, or these people who are weird, or these people who are trying to get a divorce. So clearly, like a demon got a hold of them, and then you take one person's like kind of innocuous story and you magnify that, right? Same with when Hollywood was like, "Who's a communist?" and everyone freaked out and they blacklisted all these like actors and stuff, right? But that was that era's version. So I think
this seems to me like a pretty close parallel to that, where everyone, and you see this also in East Germany post World War II, there was like the Stasi, which was the secret East German police that would listen to everybody's phone conversations. And so everyone is constantly trying to get their rivals in trouble with the Stasi by like setting them up, having phone calls with them because they know everything's being surveilled. So it does seem like you're making the argument that this is just us and this is just how people throw each other under the bus to get ahead in the world.
Yeah.
But
I would,
is it just that the incentives of social media have warped it so much that now just everybody feels like they have to participate in this kind of system, this slaughterhouse online, or what?
I think so. I think we, because and even going back to all that, it used to be just throw someone under the bus, right? But now it's more of a thing because of the power of social media and because it's so instant. We are able to. It's not enough to just throw someone under the bus. You want to build the bus. You want to learn the training manual for the bus. You want to be able to drive the bus and park it in front of their house, and then find that dude, throw him under. You want to make sure people are on the bus, but so they can see you throw them under it, right? So it's always weirder when it's like someone who's not directly involved, which I think we see a lot more now. Or again, if it's a situation that's not directly related to XYZ, and we present it like, well, I've heard he's also racist. Like, where did that come from? We were talking about, whatever. So yeah, I think that the amplification of it is, again, wanting to be a part of something. So if we go outside and see like 10 people walking with like torches, our immediate response is, why are they walking with torches? And then we see them set like a giant monster, like let's say it's like a Frankenstein's monster, and we see him like he's curled up in a ball. We see him get set on fire. We're like, whoa, why are they setting this creature on fire? And then if they all turn their heads and look at us, like, wait, you don't think we should set this monster on fire? And then they're like, no, I do. And then we end up grabbing a torch and setting it on fire as well, because that becomes kind of the thing that feels more habitual, because we don't want to get set on fire.
Oh man, I'm so glad I did my homework, because another one of my quotes is something that you're summarizing right now, which is, this is from your piece, quote, "So you've been canceled." You write, "If you're a part of the mob and stop and say, hey, let's think about this, you risk the mob turning on you."
Yeah.
So, I mean, and especially in Los Angeles, but I'm sure this happens everywhere. It seems like, especially in Los Angeles, people want to keep their heads down in general. They don't want to stick their head up. They don't want to take a stray bullet. So for the most part, if they can hide within a community that has like a relatively safe opinion, they will do it. Even if they don't 100% agree with it, even if it might rub them the wrong way, they're like, why would I make trouble when I'm trying to be cast for X, Y, and Z, and I'm trying to get friends to invite me on their improv shows or whatever? Like, why would I step out of line? My own personal point of view is like, it may be self-destructively so, is like weirdly the opposite of that. And it goes back to my family experience, which was to encapsulate very briefly, like, both of my grandparents on my mother's side had the experience of, we've lived in these like rural ethnic villages for like hundreds of years. Like, it's our whole family history is like we lived in these villages. And then one day, I mean, no, it wasn't one day. It was a gradual thing over time where a new government took over and then started to criminalize these people just for being people. So they were not allowed to be business owners anymore. Eventually, they were not allowed to keep their homes, and then and they were not allowed to like marry other people from the society. And then eventually, it was all like, and you're a disease, like 5 to 7 years into this campaign, you're vermin, you're a disease, we're going to ship you off and eliminate you from society. And it was like a slow process, but that they all lived through. And like every intellectual and aristocrat and science person of that era and that community all became to be in agreement with that position. Because over time, if you bombard people and repeat the same thing over and over again, you can move popular opinion where you want it to go.
Yeah.
So given that that's in my family history, basically whenever I see anything that I consider to be a mob, I almost always instinctually just be like, no, I'm going to be the person standing in the train tracks with this person and like flipping the bird to the train that's coming, kind of regardless of the reason why the train's coming or whether it's justified, just because I know that people can err when they're in a mob, and the IQ of a mob goes down the bigger that it gets.
Yeah.
There's less thoughtfulness the more people that, even if it's the seedling of the idea is right, like we want to protect women in society, or we want social justice, or any of these like just on face kind of obviously good ideas, the more people that you have more fervently believing it, like more bad stuff kind of gets swept onto the oncoming train kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very much it's so easy to rile people up, especially now. All it takes is one tweet, one post, one whatever, and then just boosting that for the idea of that guy's bad. And we don't look at the why, because there was a few years ago where I remember hearing about, there was this woman who was a doctor, and she was trying to research pedophiles. She was trying to figure out why is there a cycle of pedophiles? Why do people do this, right? And she needed funding to do the research. But
I see where this is going.
Yeah. But people didn't want to fund pedophilia, but it wasn't even, it would have been a thing to stop pedophilia. But because the visual of it was we're paying for the help for whatever you want to call it, that stopped a lot of people. And then it became, well, she was the one who did this. She wanted to help research pedophiles, and so now the attack goes on her instead of what the original objective was, which is to stop pedophilia.
Yeah, this was before social media fervor, but my old politics professor, Mark Roosevelt, grandson of Teddy Roosevelt, he was running for the governor of Massachusetts, and he was trying to put forth one of these old school progressive policies of, we need job training in prisons, because when these people get out of prisons, they need to have some vocational training. All of the statistics say they're less likely to be a recidivist if they have job training. They can go into work. But then his opponent, William Weld, the Republican at the time, was just like, oh, so we're going to spend our tax dollar money giving it to prisoners now? And then the whole, Simpson-esque, audience behind is like, yeah, don't give my money to prisoners. And it was like, everything we know says this is way more worth the money we spend than the money we spend on prisons themselves, in terms of improving our society. But, yeah, if you can get a soundbite saying something the other way, then everyone's like, no, you're taking money away from my daughter's school and giving it to prisons or something like that.
Yeah, that should be me taking money from my daughter's school so she can't read anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to talk about your own personal experience with the standing in the train tracks and the train coming?
Yeah.
Metaphorically?
Yeah. I think for me, it was a lot of my problems kind of stem from just saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I just would talk shit, right? Because I was like, oh, it's not even on some I'm invincible kind of thing, but more of a, I can stand up for myself kind of deal. The issue there is, in a lot of people's eyes, or a lot of people, what they heard or saw was, oh, black guy from Alabama, he should be dumb and happy to be here. And it should be that simple. The fact that he's getting opportunities, or the fact that he is dating such and such or whatever, he should be happy to be here, instead of him wanting to rise, or instead of him fighting back or saying this, that, the third.
That's crazy. It's almost like saying you should just be happy to be alive and don't ask for anything. That's
pretty much, yeah.
That's kind of insane, yeah.
And it's not that they vocalize that, but you can, again, I think they thought that I was stupid because I'm a hick from Alabama. Yeah. So the idea was, oh yeah, that guy is not. Oh, now he's doing smart jokes, or now he's singing on stage. He's doing this, that, and third. He's doing improv and stand up, right? So just pissing off the wrong people, and granted, making some bad decisions, but not egregious to the point of where you have to go after me, right? Where it should be a thing that you bring up 10, 15 years later, that kind of deal.
So wasn't the main thrust of it that you just had a bad falling out with an ex?
Yeah.
And that your ex decided to make it a huge public thing for whatever reason?
Yeah. So there was someone I dated for a couple of years, and And it kind of it just moved very fast, and I was coming off of what I would call my fuckboy phase, because I had been single for like a year and a half, and I was doing well. I was skinny. I was I was like 24, 25, something like that, and just kind of flushed into a relationship, and it is not to no blame on her, but I think that I was able to kind of keep but I was doing two separate lives of like being loving, devoted boyfriend to person in the community, but also still like kind of fucking around. And then I would have other people in my ear like, yeah, man, you're supposed to. You're popular. Like that kind of thing. So then once it kind of came to a head of me telling this person like, yeah, I've cheated, right? Then it became like, and I knew personally because she had told me a story of her uncle had cheated on her aunt, and when the uncle cheated, the entire family cut him off. And I was like,
so this was, in other words, her programming.
yeah,
This is her family programming, which is it's a particular trigger point for her. I mean, I'm sure it is for everybody. Nobody wants to be cheated on, but like
Right.
it's a particular trigger point, and so this justifies her using like the nuclear option when dealing with the boyfriend who's doing this, because she's like, well, I already saw how my whole family like literally excommunicated one of our people in our family, so
Yeah.
this is the behavior that I will do now.
yeah, I was like this, and I've been cheated on. It does not, it's not fun.
Oh, yeah.
My mom got cheated on, and I think for me talking to, so I had and it's again we talk about that family dynamic, but I had cousins and this person, that person in my family, or friends who were like, yeah, I've fucked such and such. Like, but you're married to this person. Who cares? It's like, so to me, it was like, well, if that person is someone who I looked up to, or is this kind of father figure, is my whatever representative, and they're saying this action is okay, then you justify it in your head and your body of like, well, as long as I'm doing this safely, and as long as I'm not, don't mess this up and muddle this. But then that got messed up and muddled. So it was like, okay, I'm seeing now the disconnect as I got older, of like, oh, this isn't a good action, right? And because they did something wrong, because I did something wrong, because whoever did something wrong, that doesn't make them a bad person. But I think when it is a community setting, you have to have a bad person. You have to have a bad guy, a villain. So it became, I was told I was evil. I was told I was a sociopath, a psychopath, crazy. You get death threats, all that stuff, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll quit comedy. I'll go to church, right? And I did that. And then they were like, oh, now he's trying to rebrand himself as a Christian comedian. I was like, I've always, what? I've talked about God before, like, and going to church and stuff. But now I'm like, I'm actively trying to do the right thing and like leave this person alone, and I got away from you. Why are you still talking about me?
So it's almost like they're saying like, no, we've cast you as the villain in our community. You can't not be the villain, because then we have to find a new villain, and that's a pain.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
Well, it became kind of a steady rotation that I picked up on, and I think that's why people were like, oh, we can reach out to Martin because he doesn't mind talking about it or whatever. But it became kind of a steady rotation of someone in the comedy world would die, we'd be sad for a week, and then we would kill somebody in the comedy community.